We're here back after an amazing morning of presentations. I have to thank all the speakers that we've had so far. They've been very engaging, and I expect that we're going to have a lot more to come this afternoon. Sorry about the short break. We'll have another break in the middle of the afternoon, so let's get going. We're moving on to session 4 now, Citizens in a Pandemic. And we've got 2 papers here from different sides of the world. And we'll start with Katarina Wolf and Petra Thunessen. So Katarina, are you ready and able to go?
Yep, we all good.
Okay, has that settled now?
Just muted you, Katarina. Do you want to try again?
Should be okay now.
Yeah, that's better. Fantastic. Okay, good. Katarina, would you like me to share your slides?
In the corner there, Brad.
Wonderful. Petra, sorry, I'm just muting you because I think you're some of our feedback coming through. So when you're ready to talk, give me a heads up and I'll unmute you.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah, I think so.
Right, I should be okay now.
Wonderful. Okay, let me share screen.
We can't hear anything.
Can I hear you?
Okay, can you hear me fine now?
All good.
Okay, apologies. We have multiple microphones in the room going, so it's all been a great experience. Okay, yeah, and thank you for the technical support right there. Yeah, so hello and welcome to our paper, My Body, My Choice, Exploring Notions of Human Rights and Freedom of Expression in the Context of a Global Pandemic. My name is Katarina Wolf. I'm from the School of Management and Marketing at Curtin University in Western Australia.
And I'm Petra Thunessen from the School of Communication Studies, Auckland University of Technology in New Zealand.
And this paper builds on 2 earlier studies in which we compared Australia and New Zealand's respective communication strategies first during the first 12 months of the global COVID pandemic, following by a critical examination of both countries' vaccination rollout and associated communication. And over the past month, and especially the past few weeks, we've seen a rise in mass demonstrations, not only across the world, but also in particular in our backyards. And this paper takes a closer look at what has become commonly referred to by the mainstream media in everyday conversations as the anti-vaxxer movement, seeking to make sense of what the rise in this protest movement signifies for our respective societies, as well as how these protests can be positioned within the context of public relations scholarship to date. Activism presents a prominent body of knowledge in public relations scholarship and practice today. However, the focus has been very much on how activists operate in relation to organisations, with an emphasis on issue management and damage limitation. And furthermore, PR scholars have conventionally focused on the study of progressive activism, in particular within the context of environmentalism. So we argue that it's worth noting that activism is a polyolithic concept, capturing not only social movements and groups committed to political reform, but extending to those non-progressive movements, including those hostile towards environmentalism, spaces inhabited by fundamental movements, and those seeking to oppress civic rights. And within this context, the rise of the so-called anti-vaxxer movement within the context of the global COVID-19 pandemic really added visibility to those freedom protests illustrating this particular point.
So the rise of mis and disinformation has amplified the importance of the study or to understand non-progressive movements, because trust in traditional information sources, as we know, continues to decline. In fact, we know that trust across all areas of life has been in decline. And according to a recent Edelman Trust Barometer report, has reached global record low in 2021. And this report highlights that loss of trust has resulted in an increased fear that individuals are losing their freedoms as citizens as a result of the pandemic and the related health measures. In fact, 62% of the global population expressed concerns that they were losing their freedoms. And the global COVID-19 pandemic has challenged these our existing identities, resulting in widespread uncertainty what the future may hold. And as health advice and related restrictions are updated on a continuous basis, Australian and New Zealand residents, like everyone else across the globe, has had to learn to accept the day-to-day decision-making, in particular relation to travel, family reunions, and work arrangements, that these restrictions are largely out of their control. And to overcome this personal loss of control, individuals have taken to the streets in what we will call a semi-organized way to reclaim their sense of identity as part of what has been widely referred to as the anti-vaxxer movement. On contrary to how these protests have actually portrayed in the media, we argue that these localized protests are part of a worldwide emergence of a multi-issue movement has challenged our traditional understanding of freedom of expression and human rights. And a combination of widespread confusion fueled by mixed messaging, combined with frustrations resulting from a lack of clear paths out of the pandemic, has provided these groups of activists with an amplified voice, a platform and a profile. And they've drawn in crowds in their thousands, claimed by the media to be tens of thousands, and in the case of a recent protest in Melbourne, even 500,000. But this number has been wildly disputed and argued to have been inflated by about 25%. Regardless of the numbers, though, it's indisputable that these protests have been attracting large crowds which are as diverse as they possibly can be. For example, a recent protest in Perth included representation of traditional anti-vaxxers, conspiracy theorists, religious groups, health workers, FIFO works and tradies, vegans, outlaw motorcycle gangs, right-wing groups, the secessionist movement, and individuals who are just frustrated with ongoing movement restrictions and border closures. And all of these have been collectively referred to and extensively profiled by the mainstream media as anti-vaxxers. Now, we need to understand that although the anti-vaccination movement has received increased attention during the second year of the global 19 pandemic, having been fueled by media reports that favor social conflict over positive news stories, and the growing sense of confusion and frustration resulting from continuously changing health advice and restrictions, we must understand that this anti-vaccination movement is actually not new. In fact, it's been around for nearly 4 centuries, and it has a history dating as far back as the 18th century, when Reverend Edmund Massey in England preached that the disease was God's way of testing humankind. This anti-vaccination movement has reached actually its peak in 1900, and ironically, though, despite scientific advances, the arguments made by the opponents of mass vaccination programs has changed very little, and their chosen approach is often in the form of mis- and disinformation that further erodes trust in the efficacy of vaccines. Now, the global pandemic was originally credited for an increased sense of community and localized identity. However, what we've seen over the past 21 months is an increasingly fragmented society and an increase in social unrest and conflict as job losses loom and everyday life is continuously shifting. And even though the mainstream media may conveniently label protesters as anti-vaxxers, many of the individuals who have publicly spoken out at protests are not opposed to vaccines per se, but they've raised concerns about coercion, human rights, freedom of choice, and a perceived shift towards totalitarianism. And as we've seen, they often appropriate slogans that are unrelated to vaccinations. So the question that we were asking is this really a unified movement, or is it one that brings together all forms of discontent that has resulted from the pandemic? And basically appropriating notions of human rights and freedom of choice as a shared justification for public unrest. Now, the appropriation of the language of the feminist and human rights movement is problematic because they're being applied in an entirely unrelated context and arguably holds this collective individuals together. For example, my body, my choice is a feminist slogan that's been used in several cultural contexts. It's been established over multiple decades, and it represents an individual's right of self-determination over their bodies for sexual, marriage, and reproductive choices. Now, as a slogan and representing the wider feminist movement, my body, my choice represents personal autonomy that doesn't infringe on the rights and the health of the broader community. In contrast, co-opting the pro-choice mantra within the context of, for instance, mask wearing, social distancing, and vaccination actually fails to make the distinction between individual rights and measures designed to protect the broader community. So again, it's worth noting that the reference to personal choices and rights isn't actually new, but well over a century ago, at the time of the rollout of compulsory smallpox vaccinations in the United States and other countries, a United States Supreme Court ruling established that individual liberty isn't actually absolute, and that public health measures can interfere with individual rights if these measures are considered reasonable. In other words, what we want to say, the rights of the community outweigh the collective rights of the individuals.
Right, we argue that mass media has played a crucial role in providing the anti-vaxxer or self-proclaimed freedom movement with a voice, thanks to an extensive, typically uncritical reporting by focusing on physical representation and numbers. And this debate has spilled over into the social media sphere, resulting in the perception of a sizable, coherent protest movement, which is enjoying increased support from a cross-section of society and is drawing on extensive social capital. So in referring to Bourdieu's theory of practice, social capital refers to the actual and potential resources that are linked to a network and enable it to challenge existing power relationships and the status quo. For example, individuals or nodes within the anti-vaxxer movement may be able to provide technical skills like graphic design, writing, issue-specific expertise. For example, individuals might come with a health or science-specific background, or access to other networks, which could be political, the media, and so on. However, we argue that the focus on numbers, both of individuals attending protests and the volume of pro-choice social media commentary, detracts from the nature of what is being portrayed as a single issue movement. We argue that the so-called anti-vaxxer movement that has emerged over the past month is actually not a coherent social movement, but instead a hodgepodge of different groups and agendas. The anti-vaccine movement has been particularly successful in reaching out to a diverse range of groups and individuals discontent with government policy, with the intent to connect. And Gittler and Vidal refer to this type of social capital as breaching social capital, because it established a connection beyond an established group or community, potentially even across different social divides, as we've seen in this example. It therefore enables the movement to leverage the skills and problem-solving abilities of a wider range of people, at least temporarily. We're saying temporarily as what the so-called anti-vaxxer movement is actually lacking is bonding social capital. Putnam refers to bonding social capital as a sociological superglue of society, which brings people who already know each other even closer together. And bonding capital enables the development of a shared identity supported by a sense of belonging. Common references to freedom of choice and human rights at least temporarily enable individual participants to connect. But without the common objectives, the movement is as best held together by a social equivalent of sticky tape. Arguably, the lack of superglue is what challenges the longevity of the COVID-19 anti-vaccine movement, which indeed is not so much a movement opposed to vaccinations, but a heterogeneous mix of different groups with varying priorities, communication styles and demands, which are brought together on a platform of discontent, challenging government responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. So its multi-issue nature suggests that what has been framed by the media as a coherent collective counter-voice is no more than a pop-up movement capitalizing on chaos, confusion and discontent with a limited lifespan. Through a social movement lens, each and every single voice contributes to modern functioning society, which embraces a multitude of perspectives. However, despite improved visibility, the multifaceted nature of the COVID-19 anti-vaccination movement risks the drowning out of individual voices and group-specific objectives. The COVID-19 platform may have brought together different groups, resulting in bridging social capital held together by a collective sense of loss of control and frustration. Even though the mainstream media tends to frame current protests as being a visual representation of a coordinated and growing anti-vax movement, closer examination highlights its eclectic, polylytic nature, which not only challenges the assumed existence of a coherent movement, but questions its ability to build a commonly shared identity and maintain momentum over time. Many of the groups and individuals represented may appreciate access to a shared platform to have their voice heard, but their communication styles, priorities, and ethical compass remain irreconcilable. So what does this mean for public relations research and practice? Well, the argument can be made that activists, irrespective of the cause and issues they seek to promote, perform a vital role in society by contributing to the presence and visibility of competing discourses. It's important that strategic communicators understand the language, tactics, and strategies used to challenge mis- and disinformation. In order to do that, we need to look beyond the convenient framing of a coherent movement to take the time to understand the nodes or subgroups in issues within a given collective. Given the role that uncertainty and discontent play within the anti-vax protest movement, listening skills, and Jim will, unfortunately he's not here, but he would like me saying that, are a key device in the public relations toolkit, enabling different voices to be heard and acknowledged. Public relations scholarship and practitioner literature have traditionally and arguably naively focused on managing and silencing opposing voices. Consultation is often only conducted in name only. Community frustration, discontent, and opposing voices don't disappear if challenged, silenced, or sidelined. You may no longer be able to hear them, but they nevertheless continue to exist. So the global pandemic and associated public health challenges have highlighted the important role of public relations and the role it plays in society. And we call on scholars and practitioners to take the time to genuinely listen, seek to understand different perspectives and the underlying drivers behind what at first sight may appear like a coherent protest movement, but represents a much more diverse cross-section of society and associated concerns. And that's it from us. And yeah, Amy's just sharing the relevant references.
Thank you, Katerina and Petra, for a fascinating insight into the pandemic. I think we've seen a lot of pandemic research and discussions going on, but that's certainly an angle that's new to me and my reading. So thank you very much. We'll hold off questions because we've got another paper that focuses on the pandemic, and Rizkia, if you are available and would like to share your screen, we'll make a start there. No, I can't see you on my.
Okay. Hi. Wait a moment.
Sorry, you're having some technical difficulties?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like Amy's help?
No.
No? Good.
No. Okay, wait a moment.
Yep, that's fine. That's okay.
Okay.
Okay, are you trying to share your slides at the moment, or?
Yes, I'm trying to share my screen. I'm just opening my slide here in my device.
I encourage, if anyone has questions for Katerina and Petra, maybe just make a note in the chat room while you're waiting, and we'll come back to them.
Okay.
So can you tell us what the issue is, and we might be able to help?
Okay, I think I'm already fine. Okay,
That's
yes.
starting to come through. Yep.
Okay, there are some, yeah. Okay, thank you for the opportunity, Lian, and all the people here. My name is Rizkia. I'm from Indonesia. I would like to share my research about Warga Bantu Warga, or if we translate in English, citizen support citizen movement in Indonesian social media ecosystem during pandemic COVID-19. In this case, I will take case from Tukobar Jabar. It is a platform built by the government of province of West Java province in Indonesia. It is built to support spread information regarding COVID-19.
Rizkia, can I just ask you to go into presentation mode rather than?
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
We'll be able to see your
Okay.
slides a bit more clearly.
Yes, a little bit. Yes, moment.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I think I will go to the next slide.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. First, I would like to explain the introduction first. In March 2020, the first case of COVID-19 discovered in Indonesia. There are 2 victims of COVID-19 was found in Depok. It is a place in West Jakarta. And after that, in 24th of March 2020, lockdown start to happen, and it has impact so many aspects of people's lives, not just in psychological but also in economic. There are around 2 million people worker that has been has impact economically, both from getting retired, from fire from their job, or they can go outside to search for their income. Some of them are called pekerja upah harian or daily wage worker. It is people who has to go outside their house to earn income from daily basis. For example, like selling food in the street, or people who work as online taxi driver, who count their income from what they did in daily basis. Yes. They are the most impacted by the economical impact of the lockdown. Meanwhile, Indonesia has large social media user. There are around 80% of Indonesian people are familiar with media social. Hence, in this case, in this crisis, government and also other authority figures use media social as the platform to campaign about how to protect ourselves during the pandemic. First, they use the hashtag stay at home or di rumah aja to campaign people, to persuade people to stay at home. And also during pandemic, there are many social movement conducted by influential figure or celebrities or non-government organization with hashtag warga bantu warga or citizen for citizen, in order to help other people, other citizen who has damaged, impacted by the lockdown, with economics impacted by the lockdown. And also, besides that, the government also use this hashtag also warga bantu warga to persuade their citizen to help their other fellow citizen who weren't as lucky as people who has a better economic situation. Now, the research question: how is the implementation of CRC model in Warga Bantu Warga movement in the Pikobar Jabar Instagram account. Okay, first I want to explain about Pikobar Jabar. It is a Instagram account. It is actually a platform developed by the government of West Java province to deliver and distribute a message regarding COVID-19. Because there are too many hoax during the pandemic in Indonesia, and the government thinks that they should give direct information as the part that should be the reliable one. The government Jabar consists of mobile apps, website, Twitter, and also Instagram account. However, in this research, I only focus on Instagram account. Okay, this is the preview of the account. They already has a lot of posts because they started from early March when the first case already discovered. Okay, now I will talk about the CRC. It is model that I used in this research to analyze the data that I found. It is the model found by the CDC, Center for Disease Control and Prevention in the US. According to this model, there are 5 stages of crisis. First, pre-crisis, and then initial event, and then maintenance, resolution, and also evaluation. According to this model, in every state of crisis, different messages are required to given to the community. This is a little too long if I explain it by one, but the message has very wide range of content from warning message that give people alert about the danger of the crisis, and then this message that give information about the information of this mechanism of the health crisis, and then there are messages about uncertainty reduction where the government will always give update about the case report, the local information source, and also reassurance where the government trying to give reassurance that they take the crisis seriously and they try to handle it well. And this is step by step that has to done using the working model of CRC. In the pre-crisis, we have to give the risk message, warning, and preparation. So if we want to give message about how the disease spread or how the symptom of the disease, we should give it in the before the crisis happen. And in the national event, when the first case was discovered, the government should give uncertainty reduction or message that given information to the citizen that they try to handle it very carefully with the research, with the crisis. And also self-efficacy is a message that persuade people that they have their responsibility to contribute in the handling of COVID-19. Okay, I will move to the next slide. The method that I use is the research, qualitative content analysis method, where I analyze the content of the Pikobar account from March to April 2020. I focus on in 1 month because I want to see how the government handle the crisis in their first initial event in this first case that happened in Indonesia. This finding, first I found that the message that should be sent in the pre-crisis stage were still given in the initial event stage and maintenance. Because initially when the pandemic happened in Wuhan, our government didn't take it seriously. They didn't close the airport from people who come from abroad. And also they didn't give us data that I found. We can see that the number efficiency has the most number, the higher rank compared with another level of message. And also is the second in the maintenance stage after the first initial event happened, and the government trying to handle the crisis, but they still maintaining the coping of the crisis. Still the message about efficiency still given that has the most number of posts. This is the example of the message of Warga Bantu Warga or citizen help citizen. It's all Indonesian, but In the left side, peduli untuk berbagi means care to share. So the government asked the citizen to help the other citizen who didn't have a lucky situation in the COVID-19. In this picture, we can see that the one who receive the money are the one who ride the motorcycle. It is for it is a representation of the group that has impacted the most by the COVID-19. It is there are people who work as a taxi driver, as a motorcycle taxi driver, who cannot go to their job because there's restriction movement in the offset. Okay, and the conclusion, COVID-19 crisis gives some novelty about this communication, where in this crisis, the message to residents is it not restricted to about health or about to helping reducing the spread of disease, but also to help the other citizen economically who didn't have a like situation. Okay, I think I will end my presentation here, and I will throw over to Lian. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Rizkia. Another fascinating look at the pandemic from Indonesia, and an interesting idea of getting government to get the citizens engaged. And I think the issues that's common to both of those papers is all about citizens and the role they're playing in the communication. So I'd like to open the floor to any questions or points that you would like to discuss of Rizkia or Petra or Katerina. Any questions? I notice there's been a bit of chat going on in the chat line, which is great. And again, more examples of people sharing leads and information, which is much appreciated.